This show is sponsored by the National Association for Primary Education. Hello, my name is Mark Taylor and welcome to the Education on Fire podcast. The place for creative and inspiring learning from around the world. Listen to teachers, parents and mentors share how they are supporting children to live their best authentic life and are proving to be a guiding light to us all. Hello, welcome back to the Education on Fire podcast. My name is Mark Taylor. Today I'm joined by Janelle Christa and we're going to have a very interesting conversation because she's got a really diverse background from being an actress, a producer, screenwriter and also a coach. And I think sometimes it's those life experiences, it's the things that set you on a path which you're then able to give back to the people that you work with and are in your life and really give you an understanding of what education and life beyond just the studying is all about. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Mark. I'm happy to be here.
So let's start with a little bit of geography background because you're obviously not from the UK and then a little bit of sort of background in terms of how you've got to the point in your life where you are today and how that works from being a coach and all those other things I mentioned before.
Sure. So I currently live in Santa Barbara, California. I've been here about 7 years. Before that, I lived in Santa Monica, California, which is in LA. And I'm originally from Salt Lake City, Utah. I moved to LA when I was about 23. At the time, I was a single mom. I had a little 2-year-old daughter, and I was working as a coach, a sales coach for large corporations. So I was doing a lot of traveling. I was traveling to LA a lot, and I just decided to make the move. And it really was helpful for two reasons, was because I was able to be with my daughter more, or actually 3 reasons. I was able to be with my daughter more. I was able to not have to travel so much. And I also was in LA, which is, a mecca for the film world, which has always been a huge dream of mine since I was very, very young to do acting and filmmaking. So I was able to go there, that eventually led me here.
And it seems to be something which certainly those of us that live outside of America get that sense of, that sort of going to the city, and certainly, like I say, LA, if it's in terms of film, or New York, if you're talking Broadway and that kind of thing. And is it something which people aspire to, if that is the type of thing that you're interested in? Everyone feels like they have to gravitate in order to do that. And I guess the ratio of people being able to then fulfill their dreams isn't necessarily as high as people might hope.
It's, I love that you're bringing that up because I do feel like that has always been kind of put into my head and put into everyone's head, that you have to go to the city. But I think things have really changed now. So I live about 2 hours outside of LA, and I would say that I'm busier now than I was when I was there. And the reason for that is because the whole world of film and technology has changed so much that you can create shows or podcasts or whatnot on your own in your own town. So you don't necessarily have to go to the city. And things like YouTube has really revolutionized the film world, where you can, create your own future and your own shows and your own audience on YouTube or Facebook or platforms like that. So it's kind of an amazing time. However, I am glad that I got that experience of going into the city and kind of seeing what that whole world was about and working on the studios. And it's pretty cool to have those two different worlds.
I mean, it's certainly true, like you're saying, about the way the digital age has changed everything. That the reason that I'm actually able to have a podcast is because, having listened to a podcast and thought, this sounds like a really great thing to get into, the barrier to being able to do these things yourself is suddenly so different than it was even 10 or 15 years ago. And like you were saying, the film thing must be exactly the same. If you've got an iPhone to start with, people are making their own videos and putting them on YouTube, and it's really a completely different mindset, isn't it?
It really is. It's kind of amazing what we can do with our phones, bringing that up. I mean, there's film festivals all over the world now for cell phone videos, and it's just amazing. But you really can change the world with your phone, and by creating a viral video or a channel that's inspiring, or and we can do it in positive ways or we can do it in negative ways, but you can certainly see it happening. It's quite amazing.
And I think you can get very bogged down, can't you, in the technology side, and I know certainly from sort of seeing your sort of copy on sort of conscious entertainment and that kind of thing, and certainly the same I think in the audio world as well. It's about the storytelling, it's about the experiences of people, it's how you're getting that across to the audience, whoever that happens to be, either through film or through audio. And I think that's the bit that always connects with people. And yes, you want to do it as professionally as possible, or you want to do it in whichever way you feel gets your message across, but it is that story, it is that sort of understanding of life, if you like, that's the really important factor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very, very true. It's amazing. I mean, story, from the beginning of time, that's how we have been able to connect with each other, and stories have been passed down, and they've helped us make sense of our lives and our consciousness and our meaning and purpose. And it's such a remarkable way to touch people and to be touched by others is story. I really feel that we can bring so much healing into our world through story. And that's what I really want to do. And that's kind of my focus, if you will.
And take us through that focus, in terms of how does that work in your life now, in terms of actually the film side of things or the performance side of things, and also the coaching and all of that. How does it all fit in your sort of in your professional life these days?
It's it's kind of an interesting story, the way that I have evolved over the years. But, as a teenager, I went through some really pretty awful adversity. And I just became a bit obsessed with the idea of movies. And it was maybe at first not such a healthy obsession. It was like, I want to be a movie star, then people will love me. This is the idea that I had. Then people will see that they shouldn't have treated me that way. They shouldn't have, look at me now. It was probably not really the most healthy mindset. However, it really drove me, motivated me. And over a period of, time, I started working through that story and working to heal that story and working through healing all of my childhood trauma and all of the, poverty and the things that I had experienced, and the abuse and everything. And it started to become a really beautiful and powerful story of what can you do with your pain. And so I wanted to, take that, and instead of trying to show people, look at me now, it really turned around to look at you and look at what you can do, and that, so I shared earlier that I was involved in sales coaching. Well, the funny thing about that, the reason why I was a good salesperson is because I always believed that I was just educating the person and educating the customer on something that they were not aware of. And so I really feel like through story, we can educate people. We can transform people and bring a greater consciousness into people's lives. And I can also heal my story in the process and help someone else awaken to a bigger story and a greater story for themselves. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's certainly key. It's why it's an important thing for us to talk about on this podcast specifically, I think, because one of the things that we want to get across to the younger people in our lives that we're supporting is often very much the fact that you are the creator of your story, you are the creator of your happiness, and that doesn't come from what has happened to you. It comes much more from how you perceive what's happened and how you deal with it and how you use that to go forward. And I think that's probably a really important factor for you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's it's interesting because growing up, I didn't really get that kind of teaching. And I'm really, really excited that you're getting that out into the world and teaching that more to people, because I think that unfortunately in a lot of our education system and just in the way that the modern world is set up, and we are kind of taught that we're just participants in someone else's story, and we need to, stick within the system and follow the rules and be told, what history is and what these things mean. And now I'm really seeing a shift, and I love what you're doing, because it is really teaching people to think independently and to question things, and to look at education differently and bring a greater level of consciousness into education. So yeah, absolutely. I love what you're doing, and I love that we're experiencing such a shift in the world where people are starting to realize they are the author in their story. And not only are they the author, but they're also the director and the star of it. And so it's pretty amazing.
And I think the other thing that strikes me, certainly had a conversation this with our kids relatively recently, because there's so much going on in the media these days about the political system, the financial system, some of the ways countries are governed, and certainly currently there's the coronavirus and all the media surrounding all those things, and some of the stories that I was hearing sort of from my kids, in the way that their friends are thinking about it and hearing about it via the news or via however they're getting this sort of media coverage, was really kind of fear-mongering and really sort of detrimental to them actually living their life day to day as they could do. The facts weren't all there. Their understanding of it wasn't completely true, but because they were sort of bombarded by all of this stuff, it was really having a negative effect. But it had a fantastic conversation that we were able to dive into in terms of, what do we actually know? What's the reality of this? Where did you get these stories from, and what do you choose to believe? And also, if you want to find out more, where do you go to sort of get that understanding? And it's a really key thing, especially for the younger people these days, I think, because they're sort of bombarded so much from so many different outlets. It's really hard to know what's true and not necessarily fake, but a version of it that they're actually able to trust.
I agree, and it is it's extremely overwhelming. I mean, we are living in a new world in regards to media and the fear mongering and knowing what to believe and just information overload. And so, I really believe in something that I work with my clients on, is really tuning into your own self and your own thoughts, your own beliefs, your own intuition on what feels right for you, and working with trusting that, because really we need more of that with all of the fake news and all the everything that's happening. It's very hard to discern, and so you have to learn how to have a level of discernment. So with my own children, that is a primary focus, is continuously turning back the questions to them. Well, how do you feel about that? What do you think about that? And that's not to put all the pressure on them that they need to know everything, but that they can look within themselves to start to figure out what feels right for them, and then go from there, because that discernment is so important. My son actually goes to an outdoor school. It's completely 100% outdoor. We're blessed because we're in California. It's really great weather, but even in the really rainy days, we put a snowsuit on him and they go cruise around and they jump in muddy puddles, and it's quite remarkable. But since they are outside all the time and they're in different locations every single day, they're continuously coming up against meeting new people. And they do, they're at a lot of parks. And so there might be some homeless people, or some people that they're not familiar with, and so they're really, really taught to tune into their own feelings. Is this person a stranger, or are they making me feel strange? And so I think being able to have that discernment and learning that from a very, very young age is an amazing way to approach education, or just how to live in this modern world, is knowing how to stay grounded in it and yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that always keeps me focused on that when I'm sort of unsure about where that line is that if you truly believe that, children come into the world with either a passion or a gift or some kind of journey that they're on, trusting who they are and giving them the strength to follow that, while at the same time just nurturing them through this sort of human element of how that comes. I always sort of refer to the analogy of the fact that, I wouldn't let my toddler play in the road just to find out that cars are dangerous. As an adult, I'm able to sort of discern that there's a certain safety that we can actually do, but by the same token, as they get older, you just release the reins, you give them more freedom, but you still have that experience. And I think the dialogue that comes from that, as they start to ask these questions and find out, gives you that chance to then create that relationship as well, then, which enables you to, for the whole relationship to grow as they get older too.
Absolutely. And it teaches them that they are their own human being, and it's so funny, because in our modern world, or maybe in the world, throughout history, our children have kind of been like attachments to us. They've been something that, my son or my daughter, instead of really, they are their own person, and so something that's really, really big, and that I learned throughout being a parent over the last 13 years is that these, little humans are really people with their own, however you want to look at it, soul or higher self or consciousness. And they do have their own gifts and their own experiences and their own things that they're wanting to show up and learn here. And by really, really, taking yourself out of the equation, which we're not really taught to do, we don't learn those kinds of things in school. And unfortunately, I didn't learn many of these kinds of things or was even prepared for them until well after I was into my parenting journey. My daughter, she's now a teenager. When she was younger, I went through this process. It was really amazing. And it was all about birth education. And she was 5 when I went through this process with her. But basically, we worked with the psychologist, which went through, how birth is the first imprint, and how if we don't work with that, it continues to affect us through the rest of our lives. And so you could see that in so many different ways. And it was remarkable because here's my 5-year-old daughter, and she was able to remember her birth and on this somatic level. And it was just so fascinating and so intriguing. And she could even name the people that were in the room. And I'm like, how did she know this? But we know these things. We are born conscious. We have feelings from the moment while we're still in gestation. And so it's one of my real missions is to awaken that into people and to remember, that we have to, from the beginning of life, ask these babies for consent. We have to, teach autonomy and personal authority from the time we're children. And, I think that we learn that more from, digging into our own history and our own past and working through our own childhoods. And, rather than just going to parenting classes, it's really, you have to work on yourself. And then, what your kid really needs. So I know I just went off in a tangent there, but I think parenting has been my greatest education in my life.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's often the thing that really strikes me is when I'm about to say, but why don't you do this? Or why don't you do this? Or have you thought about that? I think, but am I doing that? Am I modeling that? Is it something that I've actually thought about? Or, am I doing something just out of habit? And I sort of think, actually, if I can't be honest and just say, actually, yes, I've got this sussed, which of course I haven't in any shape or form in almost any of those things that I'm thinking about, it then just makes me think, okay, well, you do that, you focus on that, you do what you need to do for you, and allow the rest of it to sort of form from that observation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's absolutely amazing. So true.
So how does all these sorts of things that we've talked about, how does that sort of work through into your professional life? You're sort of saying that actually it's sort of your mission to really sort of get people to understand these kind of things. How does that actually physically sort of come to life in your day-to-day professional life?
Well, a few different things. So this year has been a really, 2019, we're now in 2020, but 2019 was kind of a crazy year for me as far as creation. I wrote like 4 books. I produced 2 online courses, and I wrote like 6 TV pilots, and one of them I did produce, and we just did a screening for, and then we also shot one of the other ones. which is in post-production now. So it kind of looks like I'm doing all of these different things, but they're really under this umbrella of healing and of bringing this awareness in a way that meets different people. So, whether you're reading a book on something, or you're taking a course, or you're just getting involved in a story through a conscious entertainment, it's all connected. So, for example, one of the shows that I'm working on right now that we shot, it's called, well, it's a working title, but as of right now, it's called #MomLife. And we're basically taking a bunch of real stories and weaving them together as a comedy. And it's very, very, very funny. And it's very, very real, and a little over the top, because we play with the realness of it. But it's basically taking all of these different women and their backgrounds and their stories, and kind of showing how they project that onto their children, how they parent. And, the two primary characters in the show, they're very, very, very different, but they keep getting pulled together because their children are raising a ruckus. We had to look back at ourselves and what are we doing to create this environment that the kids are acting out in. So there's lots of other elements in the story as well, that will feed that narrative a little bit, to allow parents to look back at themselves in a way that is humorous and funny and, non-aggressive. And so you don't have to take it so personal or get so defensive, because we have so much of that in our world, where we're just, everybody's so offended over everything, and it's hard to even have a conversation. And so this is my way. All the stuff I write typically is through comedy, because it does take those defenses down, and you kind of laugh at yourself. And I make fun of myself. I act in most of the shows that I create. So it's just a way that I can also laugh at myself in the process. So that's one way that it's kind of getting out there. Or in the online courses that I've created, those are very practical skills, things that I have learned over all of these years with working with myself and working with like tons of clients, and really putting them into a practical order of like, here's a meditation to do to help calm you down and get you grounded. Here's how you get grounded when you're out in the world, or, here's what it means to feel attacked energetically by someone. And here's the science behind that. And so, no, it's not super woo-woo. Like, I'm trying to take these more woo-woo ideas and ground them into the earth. And so anybody can really relate to them. But that's two different approaches on the same storyline here of working healing, working awakening, working, opening your eyes into something a little bit bigger and greater in a way that is non-preachy or non-assuming.
And I think when you do have that passion and that focus, like you say, there are many people that connect with us all in very different ways. And I can see how each of those elements is going to really connect with different people. And I love the fact that you're really able to sort of, from understanding yourself, that really comes across in terms of how that then is projected, like I say, whether it's in something that you're producing from a comedy point of view or a course and all of those things together. And I think that's where the real gift comes through for everybody, and how you're able to do that. And it's a conversation I had earlier this morning when I was interviewing someone. It's the sense of, we need to understand these things. We need to have these conversations. We need to be a part of all of this, so that we can then, certainly with our young children in our life, support them to then all the other things that we do through the education system, the academic side of things, in the kind of the way the world works. It's done with a real understanding of who we are, how we want to show up, and how we want to project that forward, and how we can support other people. Otherwise it just becomes something that we do. And of course, people are in the system from a young age, 6 or 7 hours a day or more, until they come out the other side. And it's only when you realise it's a gift, and there's tools and great experiences within there that we can use from our own understanding, that it becomes a real powerful thing. And it sounds that's exactly
Right.
what you're doing in the way that you're doing it.
Yeah. I mean, I have a very strong drive to, help people and to make people laugh, and, make the process a little bit easier, because let me tell you, it was really, really, really difficult for me. And, so that's really my drive, is just to make it a little bit easier for people.
Well, it's a fantastic gift to have. It's a fantastic passion to be following. So for those who want to find out more, where's the best place for them to go and explore the life of Janelle Christa?
Well, I have my website, which is janellechrista.com, which is JANELLECHRISTA.com. And if you go there right now, and you opt in, I have a few videos and a gratitude journal and a few different exercises that you can get for free that have been really, really helpful for a lot of people. And in a couple of weeks, I'm not sure when this episode will be airing, but a couple of weeks, I'll also have a couple free digital books that are related to what I call the spiritual ninja, which is kind of how to ground, how to stay connected, how to feel protected in the modern world. And so that will be available to them. And then also you guys can find me on Instagram. That's where I spend most of my time on social media at this point. And that's just Janelle at Janelle_Christa on Instagram.
Fantastic. Well, I hope people really take you up on the offer for those free things, which is amazing. I really appreciate that having that opportunity for those people listening and just following that journey and being able to get the support they need in terms of their growth and learning about their life as well. So, Janelle, thanks so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was my pleasure. I really appreciate it. And thank you for doing what you're doing, because we really need it.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. Thanks for listening to the Education on Fire podcast. For more information of each episode and to get in touch, go to educationonfire.com. Education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire.